organisation you're representing. Good evening, thanks very much for attending tonight's Airdrie Community Board. My name's Michael McBride and I'm Secretary for tonight. If I can just ask if there's any apologies from anyone.
Yes, Chair, I've got a number of apologies tonight from Sharon Craig, Irene Lester, Dennis O'Keefe, Councillor Stocks, Jim Moffat, Audrey McGuinness and Dr Anne Glenn.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Point 3 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting and any matters arising. There is a one subsection to it, but if there's any general matters arising, if anyone can make themselves known now, if you don't mind. No one? Okay. If we can move on to the subsection, which is the localised report on digital approach in schools, which was requested at the previous meeting, and that's going to be discussed by Jill Woodward. Jill?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm Jill Woodward. I'm Education and Families Manager within the service. I work with schools that were informally in the central area, but I have strategic responsibility for digital learning and teaching, linking directly with Education and Families Head of Service, Janie O'Neill, and kind of moving forward for digital, that will be with Gerard McLaughlin. You've got the paper in front of you here, so I'm not going to read it all out to you. I'm just going to give you an update on where we are with digital learning and teaching within North Lanarkshire and what our current provision is. You'll understand, obviously, and remember that the digital school was created in response to the pandemic back in May 2020. The digital school was also to be the strategic direction of digital pedagogy and practice within our schools, and to support us meeting equitable needs of children and young people moving forward. As well as the digital school, we then saw in January 2021 the launch of the virtual classroom. This is a universal offer to all children and young people within North Lanarkshire and supports primarily those that are in the broad general education within primary 1 to S3. Also, there are specific rooms on the virtual classroom for your children and young people within our ASN sector and Gaelic medium education. In July 2020, the Scottish Government launched a funding programme to support digital equity and the digital divide that existed, and North Lanarkshire received £1.6 million of that funding. The majority of that funding went directly towards purchasing laptop devices and MiFi connectivity solutions for children, our most vulnerable children and young people who did not have devices or access to broadband or internet within the home. The digital school was there to tackle, as I said, the digital divide, to support communication to families and to our staff, to improve the CPD offering that we have across the service to all of our staff, to improve and innovate the curriculum and improve the use of data when checking and measuring digital engagement and the use of digital technologies within learning and teaching. You will see on section 2.1 and in particular 2.1.1 a breakdown of the total number of devices we've purchased, which comes in at 7,193, and 87% of these devices have been issued to children and young people. The remaining percentage are in the process of being issued at the moment. There will always be a fluctuation and movement of devices as children and young people's circumstances change and those of families change, and sometimes that can be that they now have devices and don't need them, or that children and young people are leaving North Lanarkshire and moving on to education in other places. We have 678 to be relocated to meet the greatest need and 247 device returns that we're following up with our schools currently. To date, we have issued 2,200 connectivity solutions, and that's 92% of those have been issued out to young people. You will see for you, and this was taken to Education and Families SLT last week, a breakdown of the devices deployed in section 2.1.2, which was breakdown within SIMD and also to those young people who have free school meal entitlement. You've got the young people who have device deployed and connectivity solutions issued. You'll see in 2.1.3 we have reported that although the deployment shows you by SIMD and total, the plan of Education and Families is to take a report to Education and Families Committee in February 2022 when the project is complete. And this will give a breakdown of the percentage of devices across the localities and across the main towns, as well as the SIMD and free school meals. It is worth noting though that the project has also supported children and young people on the Pathways programme and those engaging in vocational education. That can't be broken down across towns and localities or into FME and those in SIMD because the numbers in that programme will change through it. North Lanarkshire Education and Families has also worked with partners. One example given is the Daily Mail's Mailforce Computers for Children, and we had 125 devices donated. These are now in the process of being issued to families where there are large numbers of children who have limited access so that we can further support those families. These are donated devices. These won't be returned to the authority and they are going as an enhancement to the families. Multiple schools across the authorities have also worked with business partners such as ASDA to have similar devices which have been issued directly out to support our families. As I said, these devices were to children and young people who were at most risk of being vulnerable and affected by a digital divide. And the criteria issued to schools across this was, on the first instance, those children and young people who did not have a device or did not have access to the internet. As we moved through the phases, it was then those that were in receipt of a free school meal entitlement, those in receipt of clothing grant, pupils in SIMD 1 to 3, and families with children and young people with 3+ were given multiple devices. There are approximately 35 children living in our children's homes, and some of these children and young people have been identified to receive the devices given to us by the Mailforce donation of 125. We've continued to work with our virtual school to ensure that young people in our children's homes also have this equitable access to these devices and to our connectivity solutions. Any future planning of deployment release will come in line with the Scottish Government Digital Transformation Programme, which was announced back in April as part of the manifesto pledge and has been confirmed that by the end of this Parliament, all children and young people within education will be offered a device one-to-one. These will be devices set up for home and school use. I can't give you any more information on that at the moment. I'm waiting for further information from the government, but we will continue to keep community boards and education and families committees updated on the progress of this when we have it and when we've got further information on it. For those children and young people who may be isolating or who are working from home from short periods of time, schools are continuing to use their own devices to support families to have access. The conversations around access to education continue to ensure that those who have limited access over a short period are supported through school devices. Schools also continue to offer paper-based and non-digital based learning. Not all families do want the learning online, so we continue to offer an alternative to that so that it can meet children and young families' needs. We continue to work in partnership with CL&D to support families in their use. This isn't just a divide for children and young people. There are many families in our communities that need support to engage with learning online and to use these devices appropriately and securely. The reopening of libraries also gives increased access to devices across our communities. In section 2.2, you'll see that I've gone on to give you further information about the digital learning offer that's available to all children and young people within North Lanarkshire. In 2.2.1, I've given you an overview of what the national learning offer is, and that is continued to be promoted across our social media and to all schools through our digital learning and teaching guidance. The national offer is provided by Education Scotland in partnership with eSchool. North Lanarkshire also has its unique virtual classroom. As I'd said at the start, that was launched in January 2021. That continues to be updated fortnightly with new and refreshed learning for children and young people, which the teachers can match into their current learning. The rooms within the virtual classroom are set up under colours so that it meets learners' needs and children feel included and not isolated through it. And as I said, that work continues to be updated fortnightly. It can be planned and tracked against Curriculum for Excellence, so is of high quality standard, and it's moderated by our central officers. Since its launch, you'll see that there has been 663,169 uses of the virtual classroom, and we continue to track that on a weekly and monthly basis for impact. And this term, there have been 48,788 visits to the virtual classroom. The virtual classroom, as well as providing core learning in literacy, numeracy, health and wellbeing and social subjects, has also picked up subjects like COP26, upcoming work around children in need and around Christmas, to support children with wider learning that they may not be able to access within school. And that's the update on the digital learning that I know the Community Board had requested.
Jill, thank you very much for that update. That was very useful, and I'm sure the details you've sent out and it's been sent to the board will find it useful also. So thank you. Can I just, before we move on, just if anyone's joined us lately, if you can just add your name into the chat bar with your organisation and your title, if you could, please. And moving on to questions for Jill. Anyone got questions for Jill? I think you're getting a free rein, Jill.
As I say, I'm getting off lighter than I do with the head teachers here. I'm gonna not sure that I'm gonna hit and run on this one really quickly, but if there are any further questions, obviously I'm quite happy to answer them, even if it's at a later point.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't see anyone making any notification. Nope. No.
Chair, there's a point on the chat bar. Anne-Marie McCabe from Caldercrooks Community Council. Don't know if she wants to say something.
Anne-Marie, did you want to come in or you just put your name in?
It was just Michael had asked us to put our names in. So
okay,
sorry.
no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. No, I don't see anyone making any notification. No, great. Thank you very much, Jill, for that.
No problem at all. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Point 4 of the agenda is Chair of Community Board arrangement. Is that something you want to bring in, Christine, or?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. This is on the agenda just to remind people that if they want to take a turn, I know Michael's kindly put himself forward, as is Sharon, to chair the board on a rotational basis, but the offer is out there. If anybody else wants to take the opportunity to have a turn at chairing the board, then please let us know by contacting Community Matters. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Christine. Can I also just mention, also following on from that, Christine, is if there's anybody on tonight who knows anyone in community groups who may wish to join that are maybe not on, and if you can maybe ask them if they'd be interested, that would also be another avenue to have a couple more people join in. Thank you. The next section is Community Matters, which has got 2 subsections on it. It's input from local community groups, agenda items from community groups, as agreed at previous board meetings, and this has been moved to the beginning of the agenda. Section 1, if I can move in on that, please, as Secretary of Cairnhill Community Council. And it was more sort of directed to the fire service, not that I'm putting any blame on the fire service, it's just to highlight it. Obviously, as many of us know, there's an interlinked fire alarm law which comes into full law on the 1st of February 2022. And obviously, if you can see this, there was a government paper which was sent out, which is available in public libraries and online, just to give people some information. However, at our last Community Council of Cairnhill last week, it was raised a couple of issues whereby some residents have tried to contact a couple of numbers which is on the back page of this document, and they're having some problems. Well, I know one resident is still trying to contact them, and one resident, it took about 9-10 weeks to get information. However, I do know recently, in the last maybe 7 days, there has been communication between North Lanarkshire and I understand Councillor Locke, who's on tonight, has had some communication as Secretary and the fire service I've been in contact with one resident. But the main issue I think that people have got is that, especially people who are non-council residents, if they're maybe elderly or disabled, find it very difficult to try and get this put into place. And I know it was moved from February 2021 to February 2022. However, as many people probably are aware, a lot of tradespeople are very, very busy at the moment, and they're finding it difficult to get people to action some of this in their homes. And I think what obviously a couple of residents were saying to me at the community council was that, bearing in mind we're coming up to Christmas period where a lot of trades are starting to go down for holidays 2-3 weeks, and then it'll be into January, and then the deadline's February 2022. So I think some of the key points that came from our request was to make fire service aware that there could be a risk where it may not be completed in a lot of properties. And if it's possible, if the fire service has a communication link to the Scottish Government, is there a possibility of having an extension to February 2022, maybe by 6 months to give people some time? So basically that's the update that I had from the interlinked alarms from our community council. Thank you. I don't know if somebody wants to pop in that, fire service or anyone else. Yeah.
David Boyle's
Thanks, David.
online.
Yeah, that's David.
Hi, Chair. Just to come back on that, just a wee bit. I was at the Cope Bridge Community Board last Monday, and I was given a wee update. Apologies, I've been off basically for the whole of November. I was off for isolating and then contracting COVID, and then had 2 weeks annual leave, which finishes this week. So I'm not fully up to date, but I was made aware that there is care and repair from South Lanarkshire that will soon be, or is made available for residents within North Lanarkshire. How we go about that I'm not sure, but what I can do is when I get back to work on Wednesday, I'll get the full details of that and I can forward it on to Christine Boyle, and we can get that put out to you all. On the matter of the numbers at the back of the leaflet, I don't know about that. Is this in the interim? Contact the station, contact your local fire station, and we'll give you as much advice as we can. So if you can put that out to the people in the community, if they're having problems, if they're looking for advice, give us a wee call and we'll try and help you out as much as we can. And we'll try and get you sort of referred on to care and repair. Or if you meet the criteria, we can come out and fit them as well. But there is criteria and there'll be a questionnaire. And obviously this is only for people that are homeowners. Yeah. If there's people that are renting, so they've got landlords, it's a landlord's responsibility. So just make sure that people know that too, so that people aren't worried.
Thanks, David. If I can just come back on that, the one of the residents has had a visit from the fire service during the week. So she was quite happy and a bit relieved that she had some contact. So I know that's been done, but I think there's probably many more people, as you know, maybe be struggling, to try and implement this by February 2022. Yeah,
I'm not sure if there's maybe even some help out there, like financial help. I'm not sure if there's maybe grants available or not. Maybe through the Scottish Government websites or through even the council websites, but hopefully there is. And if the MD could help me out and let me know that, I could pass it on to people as well. But I'm just not fully aware of that just now.
Okay, thanks, David. Anyone else want to come in on
Chair,
that?
Councillor Logue has put a comment on.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Michael. Well, just following on from David, he was quite right to highlight that this only applies to owner-occupiers, and the council have their own programme for doing this in all council houses. And Brian Lafferty's on the call, and it's Brian's section that's responsible for it. I know that, we've almost completed the programme for council houses. But when it comes to private houses, the difficulty here is that the Scottish Government highlighted that this had to be done, there's a requirement to be done by September 22. But to date, no money has been made available. Now, they put out a national press release saying that care and repair would do it. But care and repair do not have the financial basis for doing this at the present time. So when owner-occupiers are contacting care and repair, that's the message they're receiving. In response to your own specific point, Michael, about the potential for an extension past February 22, I know that COSLA has made representations to the Scottish Government to that effect, because clearly the majority of owner-occupiers will have not done this, will have not complied to this requirement by February 22. So we're waiting for more information from the Scottish Government, A, in relation to disbursement of funding, and secondly, in relation to a request to extend the requirement time from February 22.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Logue. Anyone else want to comment? And I noticed Brian's put a message on, he will update at the next item on the current position. Okay, doke. Subsection 2 on this is the Airdrie Youth Empowerment, the Youth Report on Mental Health and Wellbeing. Can I ask who's taking that point?
That would be James Fagan.
James, hi James.
How you doing, Michael? I've actually got Phoenix and Caleb that have put together a presentation.
Hi folks.
I'll just get that up just now.
Yeah, no problem.
There we go. So we are the Airdrie Youth Empowerment Group, and this is our little mental health presentation. So, like mentioned, we are members of the Airdrie Youth Empowerment and the MSYP of Airdrie and Shotts, and we're just a group of young people. We meet weekly in that home centre, just trying to make a positive change in the constituency. So, I'll just get this over. So, we are here to present the issue of mental health in the community of Airdrie and address one of the main issues affecting young people with mental health.
We're also here to address one of mental health is technically you as a person. It shows how you act and how you are as a person in general. Mental health is also an increasing issue within the majority of younger people. Part of this is to do with underlying or undiagnosed mental issues, which is commonly found.
Yeah, that's a big one in it. So I'll go on here. So as a group, we have went and put out a survey which we made within that home centre, and this is just collecting data, so we have evidence behind the points we're making. So we are here to have, say, teaching staff and maybe some extra training on how to deal with some mental health issues. So that could be anything from anxiety, panic attacks, just things that affect people in the education system, and make it easier for people to contact support services within schools and education and get help. And we need to promote youth work as a vital safe space for the young people that we speak of here. I'll let Kel take this next one.
So what can we do to support or help this issue? Well, it's not only an issue within the younger community, but older generations, which is also an issue. This is also the same reason as last time. This could be from underlying undiagnosed or issues that just haven't been recognised in general. So we know that having mental health issues as a parent can affect your child's way of thinking. And that's essentially changing how they think in their actions. Essentially, children are meant to think, follow the parent or do what the parent thinks or says or does. So,
and once again, better access to just these mental health services that could just have such a positive change on here. So the survey results that we actually got here, if I can just move this out the way. So as a group, obviously we've made this survey in that home centre, and the majority of these results have actually been from people aged 12 to 17. There were a few over 18, but we actually had 0 responses from anyone under the age of 10. So the 18 plus shows 27% of people, which is less than majority, but it's still significant because it's still people that are having these issues. And when asked if they had issues and would know where to go, 52% of people responded yes, and 48% responded with no, which that's pretty bad. 64% of people reported that they have suffered in their household, so that's once again going back to parents suffering or grandparents, anyone who loves what you're doing. And then, shockingly enough, 85% of people reported that they do not feel teachers or other educated staff are not trained for the circumstances of, once again, anxiety and panic attacks, which do happen in classrooms. Caleb, go with the
Okay.
rest of these results.
Here is a continuation. So the comparison, as a comparison to the 33% of people who are diagnosed, an outstanding 76% people say that they struggle with mental health, however, are undiagnosed or haven't essentially seen anyone to get help with it.
Sadly enough, when people are asked, pupils reported that they felt that schools have not done the best job to educate them on important issues, and a lot of that it's a mixture between the access to get to the mental health and then the education to know how to do it. So that's just an anonymous comment that's been added. There was a section at the bottom of the survey.
At the bottom of our survey, we had a section that said, "Hey, you can leave a comment."
So that's just in case the questions haven't covered anything that they wanted to add.
So someone who posted that as an anonymous user quoted, "Mental health is a difficult subject to talk about, and many people go undiagnosed because they do not know who to tell, and that they can get help and not be shut down the question. Poor mental health is also not treated seriously enough."
Once again, that's quoted comment from someone who's just left at the bottom of the survey. There were a few more, but they all said basically the same thing. And to conclude this sort of presentation, mental health is, like we said, a massive issue regardless of your minority group, your race, your age. It affects everyone. And by gathering the surveys that we do like this, we can really raise this issue and we can stop it from spiraling further out of control and the constituency. I'd like you just ask any questions right there.
Thank you very much, guys. That was a great duo and a very good presentation and well put together. So thank you very much for that. So if there's any questions you want to ask the guys at the Home Centre, please feel free now.
Councillor Beveridge has put his name in the chat, Chair.
Yep, Councillor Beveridge.
Just open that.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to see you're on the ball as usual, keeping Michael right there. Very good presentation. I just a couple of questions. First one, where did you get your survey, the material from the survey from? Where did your surveyors come from?
So once again, the survey was made by not just me and Caleb, but there was a few other members that unfortunately can't make it on tonight, and this was posted on SurveyMonkey. Social media as well. Some of us put it up on our personal Facebooks and Instagrams, but most of the results have come from SurveyMonkey.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to the Youth the Empowerment Summit tomorrow. No doubt it will be the usual engaging and challenging discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Beveridge. Sorry I very missed you. Anyone else want to ask questions? No. Don't see anyone. No. Thank you very much, guys, for that presentation. Thank you, James, as well, for bringing the people on. That was great presentation. Thank you. If I could move on to the next point on the agenda, which is the General Community Board Business and Updates, which is point 6. And that's from Brian Lafferty, Community Champions. Brian.
Thanks, Chair. I was at the last meeting, sorry I was involved, but meeting before I introduced myself and the role I would be taking as community champion, and that role will be evolving as the time progresses, and hopefully more in future we'll have more updates to give. But on the subject of the fire safety, which has been talked about the last meeting, I believe, because I read the minutes, and Councillor Logan and David Boyle has talked about it. So the current position as of last week, from my perspective, is that I've been doing a wee bit of gathering information on it. So in terms of residents and the owners within North Lanarkshire, so some people with the council attended a housing network attended by the Scottish Government as well, and it was confirmed, as Councillor Logue said, that both Care and Repair Scotland and the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services have been allocated funding in light of the impending changes. And owners who present as vulnerable and in need of assistance can contact Care and Repair Scotland. They have been tasked with ensuring advice and where appropriate assistance would be delivered. And for authorities such as ours, we don't have a Care and Repair team anymore, and there's suggestions that South Lanarkshire may be able to help us out. But it's been suggested that live services and neighbour authorities will help us, i.e. South Lanarkshire. So to date, no contact has been received from Care and Repair Scotland within the council, and in the absence of any other solution, I believe, David, that any inquiries regarding smoke alarms and the legislation is to be signposted to your good self.
and you will arrange for any on-site safety checks and inform people of any actions they need to take to make sure they're safe and secure and comply with the legislation. As far as extensions to the programme go, it was already extended a year on the back of COVID. So it's a watching brief just now, and I think without putting you in it, people have to contact the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. And in terms, Councillor was quite right, we have completed the programme for all council housing, apart from the ones who have refused us access. But we're about to start a series of forced accesses to get that work completed, and we'll have a programme in place to do all the sheltered accommodation within the council. So that's the latest position on that. I'm happy to take any questions if I can.
Yeah, there's a comment from David Boyle. David, thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Chair. And it's just that I was going to add this in my update, but I'm just going to sort of elaborate on what we were talking about before. It's just to let you know that within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, we are getting an increase in calls regarding the alarms coming in. We are now going out and actively fitting the alarms to the people that meet the criteria as well. And what we're trying to do is get awareness out to our local groups as well. And it's just to let you know the average price, what I'm led to believe, is between £200 and £220. That's on a standard house, so a two-storey house. But what you need an alarm in every landing, so every hallway landing. You need one in your living room, and you would need a heat detector, within your kitchen area, and a carbon monoxide detector. Now, I think to buy them all, it costs around about £200, but the Care and Repair are offering a free fitting of this and supplying as well, I'm led to believe. So hopefully that sort of gives you a wee update, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them as well.
Okay, thank you, David. Brian, do you want to come back in, or are you happy with that?
Yeah, just as David says there, that's about the average cost for getting this work done. That's roughly what we were paying as well. However, it should be noted that if you have got alarms that are recently replaced or renewed in the last couple of years, you can link to those as well for your fire alarms, as David says, in each room and each landing. But so that would reduce your cost if you had alarms that were up to current standard and recently fitted. So you just need to speak to your tradesman or your Care and Repair team fitting the equipment for you to get that best advice.
Okay, thanks, Brian. David, could I ask just a quick question? What's the best number for people to call you on at the fire service?
It's down at Coatbridge. It's to put me in the spot here now. It's 01236 423 321, and I'm going to double check that.
Right, okay. Okay.
If it's different, I'll put it up in the chat bar, but it's 01236. I'll put it up in the chat bar anyway.
Okay.
423 321.
Okay, thank you. Is that you, Brian? You something else coming on, or?
So just to finish off on my section, David, Michael, as I said at the beginning, it's an evolving role, and I link in with Matt's team, the Community Partnership team, to provide assistance support anywhere I can out the community. So if you keep in touch with us through Matt's team and my good self, we'll see what we can do to make sure everyone's in place to help the community.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Thanks, David, for that. Just moving on to point 7 under the same heading, which is the Act Now presentation by Monroe Fraser from Van El. Monroe.
Hiya, how you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, so have you got the presentation there? I think Christine said that she'd put it up.
Yeah, we can see it now.
That's brilliant, thanks. Yeah, so I think because I spoke to Christine earlier, and I think because the presentation is actually quite long, it would make more sense if we've only got a few minutes really to skip forward to slide 7, please. And yeah, I'm just going to give a quick kind of over. We're going to skip past the first section where we kind of talk about the climate emergency and climate change in general. But if there is any questions regarding that, you can give me a shout as well. But we'll just start at number 7. I think that makes sense. So yeah, thanks for inviting me along this evening. My name's Monroe Fraser, and I'm presenting on behalf of the North Lanarkshire Partnerships Strategic Leadership Board. I'm here to talk a little bit about our initiative that was launched earlier this year in June. It's called Action on Climate Together, or as it's often called, Act Now. Next slide, please. Yeah, so basically, in a nutshell, Act Now is a cross-sector climate emergency initiative from the North Lanarkshire's Community Planning Partnership, the NLP. At the bottom of this slide, you can see all the partners that are involved. So you've got all the statutory bodies there; they're all represented. Scottish Enterprise represent the business sector, and Voluntary Action North Lanarkshire represent the community and voluntary sector as well. So back in about autumn 2020, Van El were appointed as the lead partner by the Strategic Leadership Board. And then during that time, we've developed the Act Now plan, which you can find on our website. That was in consultation with all the partners, other key stakeholders like the community boards and the community and voluntary sector as a whole. And then we've also started our delivery through our initial launch and engagement phase. And yeah, as I said at the start, that was public. So this was launched in June earlier this year, and it's all about supporting the delivery of the council's target of reaching net zero emissions by 2030 and the Scottish Government's target of reaching net zero emissions by 2045. The plan was also created with the aim of supporting an inclusive and green recovery from COVID-19, which is socially, economically, environmentally sustainable, and which improves people's quality of life, well-being and equality. Next slide, please. So how are we delivering Act Now? Well, the Act Now plan, that identifies all the kind of high-level actions required for each sector. So you can have a look at that for a bit more detail. But as like a quick overview in terms of the public sector, I mean, they're already legally required to deliver net zero by 2045 through the requirements of the Climate Change Scotland Act. So they've been making efforts to reduce their carbon emissions for over 10 years now, and are doing quite well. But in terms of the business sector, we do have one or two businesses in North Lanarkshire that are really ahead of the curve. Like off the top of my head, I can think of ASC Clothing, who are some of you might know, they're a rental, like a fashion rental company. I think they're like one of the biggest in Europe as well at that. They're doing some really interesting things. But as a whole, the business sector needs a lot more support. The council, they were aware of this as well. So recently, I think it was about a month, maybe it was 6 weeks ago, something like that, they held an event for the business sector to try and develop greater engagement in climate action. Act Now were actually invited along to this event as well. We had a booth, which was great. Actually, we got to start engaging a little bit more with some of the interested businesses there. And in terms of the residents in the CVS, I'll go into that in the next slide a wee bit more. But just quickly before then, we've also got the coordinating group that meet every 6 to 8 weeks, and they support the delivery of the Act Now initiative. We've got representation on there with all the partners. We've also got groups like the North Lanarkshire Climate, the Youth Climate Ambassadors, which are absolutely brilliant. And we've also got the North Lanarkshire Community and Voluntary Sector Biodiversity and Climate Emergency Network, which is a mouthful, but they're good as well. And in terms of capacity, at the moment, it's delivered mainly by Van El's CEO, which is Maddie Halliday. Some of you may know her already. she does that on behalf of the North Lanarkshire Student Leadership Board, and it's also supported by a part-time project assistant, which is me. But you know, we're actively looking right now actually for more resources and funding to try and support ACT Now and extend our own capacity to really you know, get out there a bit more. Next slide, please. Yeah, so thought I'd focus a little bit more on residents in the CVS since this is a community board, but we think that the key to delivering ACT Now successfully is all about trying to get us in there and helping build capacity so that the groups all over North Lanarkshire are feeling more empowered to take on local climate action themselves. We've already got you know, some really good examples across North Lanarkshire, but we could definitely do with a lot more. You know, I'm thinking like some of the things that we really want to try and encourage and support are the local climate action champions, maybe even some local ACT Now groups involving residents and CVS organisations, to try and support maybe even existing groups to widen their remits as well. You know, it's not just all about groups that are focused on the environment. We need to get everybody involved here. We also want to focus on getting more accredited eco schools and other initiatives like eco congregations as well. And yeah, we're also wanting to try and support organisations on working to become net zero through schemes like Resource Efficient Scotland's got a green champion training scheme that we want to try and support. And yeah, that's great. Thanks for this slide. So next slide, please. Yeah, so people and community-led climate action. So we're already seeing an increased awareness around climate issues from all age groups, which is absolutely brilliant. But young people in particular are mobilising and making their voices heard. Like, for example, I mentioned them just earlier, but our young people in North Lanarkshire have created the North Lanarkshire Youth Climate Ambassadors Group, and they meet every few weeks, learn a little bit about climate action, what they can do, and they get out into their local communities and get involved. They also made a film in conjunction with the college that gives a kind of brief overview of ACT Now and what we are doing. That's you can find that on our ACT Now website, which I'll put the link into the chat after this. Other things that we could do, like for example, there's about 10 local energy schemes across North Lanarkshire, but at the moment they're all run by the council. There's a few farms and other businesses that have them. We don't have any community-led schemes yet, but you know, this is something that we could easily do. We've got a huge potential for this in North Lanarkshire. We also have a number of greening initiatives across North Lanarkshire, and there's growing interest there. And something that we could think about, you know, could we support a community woodland in every town and village? Is that something that we could do? I think it's very much within our grasp, you know. Next slide, please. So yeah, I'm just kind of continuing on from the previous slide. So I've already talked a little bit about the importance of community voice and our young people, because you know it's just really important that we can continue to try and raise awareness and advocate for climate action. I've also mentioned the renewable energy schemes and expanding our community gardens and woodlands, but some of the other things that we could look at as well. We could support greener travel options like community transport with electric vehicles and, you know, cycling and walking. Like, for example, I know Getting Better Together Shots, they raised some money not that long ago and bought a fleet of electric buses that they use across North Lanarkshire, which is absolutely fantastic. We've also, you know, we could also look into things like community lending schemes or equipment libraries, whatever you want to call them. You know, for like repair and refurbish schemes for things like clothes, furniture, tools, whatever. I know that there was one for a while up in Cumbernauld, but I think with COVID and you know, restrictions through the pandemic and stuff, it was a bit difficult for them to continue. But you know, this is something that we can easily do. And yeah, thanks. And next slide, please. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of summarise a little bit there and say that was just a very quick overview of what Act Now is. But on our website, we've got a load of really brilliant resources. Like we've got the Act Now plan, which kind of gives you a much more detailed view of what we're trying to do here. You've also got a briefing, which kind of gives you a wee bit of background on climate emergency, kind of where we are in terms of Scotland and what our policy is. We've also got a load of other resources on there as well. I think we've got about over 100 different resources for all broken down into different themes, which you can go and look at. We've got case studies from across North Lanarkshire, so we're wanting to expand that to be nationwide as well. But you know, if you're wanting to just kind of keep up with what we're doing, I think the best bet is to sign up to our bi-monthly e-bulletin, which you can do on the website. But I'll pop the link in the chat for that as well, and that'll kind of give you an overview of everything that we're doing locally, but also nationally and a little bit further afield as well. So that's quite good. We've also got the contact details there for Act Now, but I'll put in my own one there in the group chat if anybody wants to get in contact. Please do. And yeah, thanks very much for having me along. If you've got any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Thank you very much, Monroe, for that presentation. Very detailed and very colourful. So I know it was great. It was a pleasure to read it. I know there's a few people probably will contact you directly. I might have someone and probably will contact you, but I'll do that offline. So if there's anyone on the meeting tonight, community board, wants to ask Monroe any questions, please do. If you can make yourself known. Any questions from anyone? I think you're getting off lightly, Monroe.
No worries. I'll put my email in the chat anyway, so you know, if something does come to you later on, fire us a message.
Thank you for taking the time to come tonight, and obviously the presentation as well. Thank you, much appreciated.
No worries. Cheers.
Thank you. Okay, if we move on to point 8 of the agenda, which is community partnership updates, and the next 2 points are Matt Costello. Matt.
Thanks, Chair. Just want to very briefly share a presentation regarding the Community Board Development Programme. It's just again to thank everybody who participated recently in the training needs analysis, and just to advise the Community Board that we're now looking further into the details that came from the training needs analysis and helping to develop the hub that will bring together all the resources to address the outcomes that have been put forward there by Community Board members. We will be setting up login credentials for those, that's the passwords, etc., for people later on or earlier in the new year, and there'll be introductory sessions will be set up in relation to the development of the new hub as well, as work goes on in relation to that. This slide here just gives you an idea of what the Community Board Development Hub will look like. If you just imagine, this is going to be the kind of web page, and those are the kind of tablets that you can click on. The tiles you can click on that gives you information relating to those particular issues which were raised as part of the training needs assessment. You click on those tiles and that takes you into that kind of information. So I think this is going to be quite an accessible approach to utilising the community board development process as that goes on. So just in terms of the next steps for that, work is ongoing in development of that hub behind the scenes through our talent and organisational development team. There'll be an opportunity for people to participate in testing of that. So if there's anybody on the call tonight or anybody you might consider who want to be part of the testing of this, we'll be doing that in the new year. And then any feedback from that will be taken forward, and the hub itself will be amended to allow the comments to be taken on board. and we're hoping to launch the training hub around about April next year. By that time we'll have done the appropriate testing and shared the information with the community boards. So that's really all the update I want to give on that one, Chair, but I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt from anyone? No. Just before we move on, just to thank Monroe for putting his details on the side, the sidebar with his personal or his work details, sorry, and how you can contact him. Any questions for Matt? Any last chances from anyone? No.
Okay. I'll move on to the next item, Chair, but just before I move on to that, just if anybody is interested in participating in the training or the testing of the new system, then you don't have to let us know tonight, but you can just let us know through Community Matters if you'd be interested in participating in that. Just to move on to the local development programme, the report just gives an update on the year one priorities in terms of how the projects are progressing within the team. What I can say that the majority of the year one projects, in terms of the car parking projects, any play facilities, etc., that have been approved for year one, those are now at the stage where we've carried out consultation on those projects, and the local communities have supported projects going forward in those particular areas, and that they're then now moving to delivery, and we're in conjunction with contractors to ensure that work can start as soon as possible. To deliver on the projects. In terms of any ones that are related to further tendering, the tenders are out at the moment, and they'll be considered early in the new year for any work that require that kind of tendering for delivery or commitment for delivery at the very least before the end of this financial year. So we're quite confident that a lot of the projects for year one will be considered, and we're starting to build up the ones for year two and future years applications. And again, if there are any out there elected members or community groups who have got an interest in any particular projects they want to take forward, please let us know about it and we can start the process in relation to that in terms of project proposal forms, etc. So that's where we are with those particular projects just now. Just wanted to highlight in the final appendix within that report, it shows you just a draft of a consultation letter. That's the letter we use. It goes out to any local residents who would be more or less directly affected by a project that was going to be going into their particular area, and that's the letter we use. We've kind of tried to modernise that approach now, putting QR codes in, which we're all becoming more familiar with. We're using QR codes for other things during the pandemic. We now use QR codes on our letters for people who can very quickly take the links to websites, etc., to show that. But we also do use more traditional methods of sending information out by post and copies of plans and drawings, etc., on request to people who are interested in that as well. So we do try and maintain more traditional approaches as well. That's all I've got to say on that, Chair. So again, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Just before I take questions, there's a point on the sidebar from Evelyn Anderson who says she's happy to take part, just so you're aware. Thanks, Evelyn. That's
great. Thanks, Evelyn. We'll make sure you're contacted for that.
Any questions on that second part for Matt? Anyone? No. Okay, move on to there's another three subsections, and that's Christine. That's the local outcome improvement plans, budget, listening events, and participatory budgeting. Over to Christine.
Okay, thanks, Chair. If I start off with the local outcome improvement plan, just a quick update on that. The report was circulated with the papers for the meeting. As you know, the LOIP was developed following extensive community and stakeholder engagement and dialogue with key partners. A number of the people around about the table here tonight were involved in that process. The Airdrie LOIP has now been published and is on the North Lanarkshire Council website. It was also circulated to board members, so you should all have seen that at some point. Unless you're new to the board tonight, we could make sure that you've got access to that as well. Just please let us know and we can recirculate that. But other than that, it's on the council website. Now that the LOIPs have been published, the focus is now in implementation phase of the plan. We need to move to the action stage, and To do that, we need ongoing collaboration between local communities and the community planning partners. And we know that within Airdrie, I know a number of local groups and organisations have been involved in looking at taking that forward. And that's really important because we can't take it forward without people's local involvement in that. I do know that the subgroups are already in place in Airdrie. Initially there were 3 subgroups, however the agreement was that that would now be kind of pulled together, just because of people's kind of access and their ability and their capacity to be able to be involved in all of these things. But they're still taking forward the LOIPs that were identified and the actions that were identified locally. The cross-cutting themes that have been identified across North Lanarkshire in terms of the LOIPs were things like poverty, which isn't a surprise, mental health, which we heard about recently from the young people who did the presentation as well, digital inclusion, and young people were kind of key cross-cutting themes that have kind of come out across North Lanarkshire. And within Airdrie, we know that the kind of poverty, mental health, and is a big issue within the local area, including digital inclusion as well. What we hope to do in terms of monitoring is that local updates will be given at the board as we're doing tonight, and the papers for those, the updates will be sent out in advance as they have been for this meeting, and we'll make sure that that's done for each meeting as it comes around. There'll be 6 monthly tracking progress reports completed. There'll be an annual report produced that will be published online, and a formal review every 2 years, so that we're keeping track, we're seeing how we're progressing, and we're making sure that we're progressing the actions that have been identified. The next steps will be to feed back to those who contributed to the earlier discussions and were involved in the process of the listening events, the focus groups, people who contributed to survey work. We'll share the LOIPs with them to enable them to realise how their contributions have informed the plans. And I know the people that are still involved in the LOIP process will be able to see how their involvement in the initial parts of the process have helped to develop that ongoing. The people who would be able to give you more information and answer any questions tonight, I know Judith is taking the notes, so bear with us, because if you get questions that are going to be pointed at Judith, we need to understand she's taking the notes of the meeting as well. Irene Lester unfortunately can't attend the meeting tonight, but we also have Lynn Adams on the call. So if you have any questions, they would be able to answer those. So happy to take any questions that people maybe want to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Any questions for Christine, anyone? No.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Christine. You want to move on to the next point?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Okay, the next one is about the budget listening events. And there was a listening event in Airdrie. Now, that was part of budget engagement process that was carried out across the council. There were about 119 people participated in listening events in local communities. There was a targeted approach in terms of engaging young people, and about 68 young people participated in that. And there were around about 500 completed surveys online of people that contributed to the process. The update I'm going to give is a wee brief update on the Airdrie listening event and some of the points that were raised at that event. The listening event was based on about 4 key questions that were asked. First of all, what council services did people value the most? In the Airdrie area, people mentioned things like maintenance of cemeteries, street cleaning, litter picking in town centres, footpaths and residential areas, green spaces and being able to utilise them, green spaces round about lochs and other green spaces in community parks. Health provision in places like Caldercrooks and Longrig End was raised. Winter maintenance, and we've had that at the board before, was raised as well as a local issue. And social work staffing was also raised as an issue and a service that people value most within the Airdrie area. In terms of service delivery priorities, the priorities that were put forward were housing, education, local employment opportunities, mental health, poverty, social services, environmental issues, and people had asked that we had a continuation of the Recover NL equipment and resources, because people felt that that was something that they were able to kind of participate in locally, and there's some really good examples in the Airdrie area of people doing that and using those resources. It was also raised that we should support local people to identify who owns the land to enable them to set up factoring arrangements, because it was identified that people are willing to do things locally, but there is an issue in terms of who owns land, so that they need to find that out, and they ask for some help to be able to do that. Third question was, what services could NLC reduce or stop? There wasn't really anything put forward in terms of services that could be stopped. However, people who were involved mentioned that the council should change the negative message about the stopping to investing in local people. The council could work with local community groups such as community councils to be able to kind of help and develop and support services that are in existence. Question 4 was, how can communities work with public services to shape and support delivery of services important to local people? The things that were raised within that were the council could work with community groups, example, community councils. Calder Crooks Community Council asked if they could assist North Lanarkshire Council to improve winter maintenance. There was a request for a continuation of the recovery NL that I've mentioned before, to enable local community cleanups and litter picking. Local people were also interested in dealing with grass cutting issues, but need support to identify who owns the land, as I mentioned before, in terms of factoring arrangements. Other points that were raised in the discussions were local people willing to help, but don't know how to get involved. And the people that attended the listening events were put in contact with local organisations like Van Ale, and we spoke about how they could potentially get involved in some of these processes. There was also a thought about increasing volunteering opportunities for local people, such as things like befriending or the secondary school Friday programmes, but encouraging local young people to become involved in volunteering programmes within the local communities as well. The next steps of this is that the report will be prepared from all of the responses that have been provided, that will go to the corporate leadership team within the council, and will be forwarded to elected members to assist with budget decision-making processes. Now, that's only a shortened version of the kind of comments that were raised at the meeting. It was a very, very good meeting in terms of the Airdrie response, and all the comments that were raised, even the ones that I've not obviously went through tonight, will be kind of put forward for that budget process, decision-making process. Thanks, Chair. Happy
Thanks,
to take any
Christine.
questions on that.
Thank you, Christine, for that. Any questions on that section for Christine on the budget listening event? No.
Okay.
No. Next point, Christine, you want to move on to that
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, my last point is about the PB processes. A briefing was circulated in advance of the meeting with the papers. Following approval of the mainstream PB participatory budgeting at the Council Committee, we're now required to consider how PB will work best locally. And we're looking to establish a suitable task, a reference group to progress this. The establishment and operation of the group will be supported through community board development sessions, as Matt has mentioned before, in terms of the process there. PB is about local people having direct say in how public money is spent. Community boards will direct PB delivery funded by the LDP, the Local Development Programme budget. PB is a mechanism or a way of delivering projects with greater local input, and is not a separate resource. So it's not separate funding, it will be through the LDP programme funding. PB can involve public votes on projects, but also includes ongoing engagement with community boards on budget decisions. Certain projects such as parking to relieve congestion, CCTV to address community safety concerns, will continue to be delivered through existing community board processes, so that LDP can continue to proactively target issues within communities when they arise. When an existing group is used to take PB forward, there will be a requirement that a council officer is a member of the group to provide guidance and advice on the PB process, and also to ensure appropriate financial governance is in place. So the Airdrie board are asked to consider the briefing paper and approve the establishment of a PB task and reference group. Now, it could be a brand new group, or it could be, as I mentioned before, it could be one of the existing groups that are already in place within the area. But we're looking for consideration by the board. And that's all I have to say. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Any questions on the PB for Christine? No. Okay, thanks, Christine, for those 3 updates. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Just before I moved on to section 9, just to remind you that David Boyle from Fire Services put the Coatbridge Fire Station telephone number in the sidebar, just in case anyone's missed it, just for your information. Just moving on to section 9, petitions. Were there any petitions?
Chair, there were no petitions put forward for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. And point 10, we're getting into the input from community planning partners. Could I call on Police Scotland, please, to go first?
We should have Sergeant Henry, Alan Henry, from Police Scotland.
Alan's on the call, Chair, but I just thought he was picking up.
Okay, I'll move on to fire service if David wants to come in, and we'll get Alan in after. David, do you want to pop in?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Evening, everyone. I'd circulated a paper previously just about our statistics in Q2 for this year. If anybody's got any questions on that, I'm happy to take them just now. Okay, and just on the part of my update, I was going to talk about the new smoke alarms. I think we have covered everything, unless anybody's got any other questions that I've maybe thought of since we've spoke about it last.
Any questions from anyone for David?
Okay, thank you. As the Chair said, I had put the number up on the side there, so I did get it right. I was under pressure and I hadn't used it for a while. So just a wee quick update on what's been happening round about the station at Coatbridge. As you'll be aware, we had a merge from the July the 1st with the 2 local authorities, North and South Lanarkshire. That's now complete now, and that's been very successful. So the LSO, local senior officer for the Lanarkshire area, is Stephen Wright. He was previously the area commander for North Lanarkshire. So that's been merged successfully, and there's been no impact to service delivery at all. Bonfire night, we engaged with a lot of the schools within North Lanarkshire with virtual and physical presentations from our crews, and in the run up to bonfire night as well, we produced a document with our key contact numbers for our stakeholders and partners, and we had a very successful partnership with North Lanarkshire Council as well. If there was any bonfires that we could see getting set up, there was a number there and we could get them uplifted. And bonfire night itself, within North Lanarkshire, the fire service attended 50. 23 of them we extinguished, and 27 of them we didn't because we deemed them to be under the supervision of a responsible adult. And that has been a significant decrease in previous years with the amount of bonfires attended. So the partnership working is working, as it's been successful. Also within the Coatbridge, we took part in Poverty Week. We supplied, I think that was the first week in October, and we supplied some videos for during the week there, just to give us a wee flavour of what we do within the station. Up in Caldercrooks, we've had a bit of engagement up in the Caldercrooks area as well. There's been some secondary fires with a wee spate up there just between October up to run up to bonfire night, where crews have been going out and engaging, and we are planning to get into the local high school at Caldervale as well to engage with the youths. We have had some of the call points, the smash glass call points have been getting let off as well, so we're wanting to try and engage with our youths within the Caldercrooks area and up in Clarkston as well. Also, home fire safety visits between April and August. The crews at Coatbridge carried out 360 home fire safety visits, which turned out to be the highest in Scotland. So we are the highest performing station for doing home fire safety visits in Scotland, which I'm very proud of that achievement. It means we're getting engaged into a high number of our communities out there. Fire Reach and the Youth Volunteer Scheme. We now have concluded interviews for instructors, facilitators, and they'll give you an update as soon as we know when our courses are going to start running again. Within the station as well, this hopefully will tie in with Fire Reach. I've managed to secure a room, and talking to our fire safety department, we're going to come up with a sort of hazard room which we can be used with the Fire Reach and the youths, and hopefully with our partners as well. For instance, identifying clients or people within the community where they might be at risk of fire. For instance, the big telltale sign for us is maybe a bedroom with cigarette burns on the duvet covers, or on dressing gowns hanging over doors, that kind of thing. But hopefully we can get that up and running. It's at the very early stages, and I'd also like to get a hold of a chip pan as well. I managed to secure a chip pan when I worked at Coatbridge as a watch commander. I got it from Glasgow, and I believe it's in Cumbernauld just now. So I'm going to try and get that back as well, and that is a very good demonstration. It's out in the open air. We get a chip pan, set it on fire, and basically we've got a big long stick with a cup of water on it, and it shows you the effect of putting water onto a chip pan. And that's the end of my update, and I'm willing to take any questions. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that, David. Just before I move on to questions, we've got a message from Sergeant Henry. He's having some technical problems, so I'll move on to some questions for David. If anyone's got any questions. No. Everyone's getting an easy night tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Can we move on to NHS on this part, if NHS is on?
Sorry, Chair, can I ask David a question?
Yeah, go on.
Apologies, Alan Beveridge. Apologies for that. David, it's just to acknowledge you for your staff for your efforts, especially during the fireworks time and celebrations. I take it none of your staff were injured or anything during that time, sir. Were they all okay? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Councillor. Yes, they were all safe. Unfortunately, some of our crews within the Cumbernauld area were subjected to an attack, and we did have a firefighter injury. That was unfortunate. It's just one of these things. It just happens. But luckily, we do get good partnership working with our colleagues in Police Scotland, and they do assist us and escort us on bonfire night. It's just maybe been unlucky that the crews in Cumbernauld or the police have been called away, or it's been a redirection and the police maybe haven't been cited on where that incident was. But it was unfortunate, and as it's a blighting society just now, it's that our emergency crews, emergency services are getting attacked.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Any last questions for David? I think I see Sergeant Hendron, is that correct? Are you communicating with us?
Can you now hear me? I was having some issues there.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, if you want to come in. Thank you.
Yeah, apologies for that. No, just a quick update regarding Inspector McGuckin, who's now retired, and Inspector McLeod has taken over in the last couple of months. He's on annual leave and he's not making an appearance tonight, and he sends his apologies. I'll just cover a couple of points that covered in the last meeting, just by way of update. First, in terms of thefts by housebreaking. So over the past 3 months, there have been 3 reported, which was the same as the previous period. One of those is detected, that being a housebreaking to a local charity shop, and a male has been arrested and charged with that offence, along with a series of thefts from Monklands Hospital and hospitals further afield. The other 2 housebreakings are ongoing inquiries with positive lines of inquiry in terms of forensic and CCTV opportunities. Last month also spoke about, or rather in the last meeting also spoke about willful fire raisings. There were 3 over the last 3 months as compared to 4 in the previous period. They remain undetected, unfortunately. 2 of those inquiries still ongoing and sit with the CID at Coatbridge. And again, with ongoing lines of inquiry. Thankfully, none of those were to dwellings and no persons reported injured. Those were fires to vehicles. So that covers those 2 items. In terms of disorder, Calder Bank, you may be aware, suffered a spate of incidents where the bus service was targeted and stones getting put through windows, which subsequently affected the service in the area. One of the community officers, PC Couples, has detected that particular or two offenders in relation to that. There's been 2 youths charged with 3 counts of culpable and reckless conduct, and I believe Inspector MacLeod then also got in touch with NLC's community partnerships, and there are some cameras being fitted in Calder Bank, if they're not already in place, just on a temporary basis in relation to those issues. Further on, in relation to disorder, we're also now back up and running with joint visits with the council's antisocial team, which we do on Friday evenings in Airdrie. Those can be led either by the police or by the council, where we identify problematic households in relation to what tends to be kind of low-level disorder, but repeat incidences at the same address, and we'll visit those and take action as appropriate, and monitor those addresses with a view of rectifying any issues. And next, I should mention there's been an increase in shoplifting in Airdrie town centre, which can be something that tends to occur around about the festive period. In terms of that, I've devised a plan for the town centre where there'll be additional resources in the lead up to Christmas, New Year period, which will target, which will sort of be based around high visibility policing in the town centre, with additional resources coming from some of the officers who are in for court duties. They'll be utilising the town centre when they're stood down from court, so we should have additional bodies in the town centre to try and tackle that particular issue. We've had some good detections already. The 2 town centre officers working along with the store staff, whom they have good relationships with, and with their counterparts in Coatbridge. In terms of the town centre officers there, have managed to detect a female for 27 charges, and she was only just put to court in the last few days, just as by way of an example. So a thank you to the retailers who've been great in assisting us in identifying and capturing some of that CCTV evidence so that we can ultimately charge people who are responsible. In terms of bogus crime, fraud type crime, I should mention a joint initiative that will be taking place in December alongside trading standards. The intention being to jointly visit some of the independent post offices and provide some information and advice around about the banking protocols. These are measures designed to protect vulnerable people from financial scams, so that if a vulnerable person were to go into one of these post offices and make attempts to send money and what would be deemed an unusual transaction, that would be halted and the police notified. It's something that occurs as a matter of course in your kind of mainstream banks and post offices. This is really to educate some of the more some of the independent post offices who may not be so versed. And also, as part of that, the intention is also to get a local chemists on board, chemists and pharmacies, to include some information leaflets around about bogus, around about cold calling, and provide some stickers for doors, etc. Those will be put in prescription bags so that they can be handed out with the prescriptions and hopefully reach vulnerable or elderly who may benefit from that information. I could also cover the community alcohol partnership that I'm trying to get up and running for Airdrie. So I'm aiming to establish a community alcohol partnership, which is a kind of multi-agency partnership which focuses on reducing harm caused by alcohol in the local community. I've had initial discussions with the CAP advisor for Scotland, and be making contact with representatives from education and licensing standards, to get that underway. So the idea of a CAP, which is a community interest company, is that they can provide funding and resources to kind of jointly provide education, enforcement, diversionary activities all around the misuse or the mis-sale of alcohol and the subsequent harm caused by that to youths aged around 13 to 16 years. So that would be led by us at the community policing team, and we're hoping that will have a positive impact. That is a scheme that's already up and running, predominantly in England, but there are 5 of them up and running in Edinburgh, and they're looking to establish some in Lanarkshire. So I've put forward Airdrie as an area that might benefit from that, and hopefully that will be up and running in the not too distant future. I've also been notified that there may be an interest in the speeding issues in Cairnhill. Sorry, just prior to coming on the meeting there. It's not something that's been reported hugely in the last few months since the last meeting, but I understand there are some concerns about it. So I've had a quick look there. There were 17 road traffic related incidents raised in the beat for Cairnhill over the last 3 months, but these ranged from vehicle breakdowns, animals on the road, traffic lights being out, parking, etc. All sorts of different road traffic related issues. Only 2 incidents related to either careless driving or speeding. However, now that the officers are all back from COP26, it's certainly an issue we'll be happy to revisit. And I know Cairnhill Road is on one of our kind of repeat locations for doing our speed checks. So we'll get that back underway, and we're day shift this week, so we may even start that as soon as this week. As I understand, there are some concerns around that. That was really all I wanted to cover. If anyone has questions about any of that or any other matters for the police.
Thanks, Alan, for that update. That's very useful. I've got one comment in the sidebar from Councillor Watson. Wants to come in. Councillor Watson first.
Thanks, Michael. It was just Alan mentioned the Calder Bank issue with the buses, and it's quite important just to mention how well the 4 councillors worked together in producing a leaflet asking for help to identify the people involved. The 4 councillors then distributed the leaflet through almost every house in Calder Bank. Because obviously throwing bricks at windows on buses, moving buses, is highly dangerous and could have injured people, and or even worse, in fact, if the driver is the one that got it. So the councillors worked together and put that leaflet out, and it's obviously led to a result. So it's a good indication of what can happen when everybody works together. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Sandy. Thank you. Just on that, there's 2 comments on the sidebar. I believe that is for Alan. It's one from Lynn to say that she would be interested in joining the group if community partners are invited. And from Margaret McGreevy, Alan, it might be an idea to come along to the MHLD and Addictions at LPG.
Okay, yeah, what I'll do is I'll put my email address at the bottom, and if anyone wants to ask about community alcohol partnership or who might get involved in the initial stages, I'll answer off table. I think there's a couple of town centre officers have now started going to one of the addiction clinics just to lend their assistance on a Thursday at Airdrie Health Centre. I take it that's not the same thing that Margaret's maybe alluding to. Is that something else?
Margaret said no.
Right, no problem. I'll put my email address up then, and Margaret can get in touch.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Anybody else get questions for Alan? Margaret says thank you for that, Alan.
No problem.
Just a point from myself, Alan, on behalf of Cairnhill Community Council. Yes, no, I get your comment about Cairnhill Road, and I just recently spoke to the 2 local officers here, Caroline and Fraser, just a couple of days ago. So again, it was sort of a Victoria Place, Cairnhill Road, side road area. So yeah, if you could put a focus on that, that'd be great. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks very much. Moving on to, I understand Lynn's now ready to give an NHS update. Lynn?
Hi.
Hi.
I think it was Margaret, but Margaret's having issues.
All right, okay.
Margaret's having issues regarding connection. So there's just a couple of updates. I'll be really quick, just about some of the services and clinics within NHS Lanarkshire. They're starting to return to normal, but also with some restrictions. You know, there's some clinics that you need to make an appointment with. I think the clinics will be, like say, the sexual health clinics, they're returning to normal. We've also the screening, the national screening programmes, they're now back up and running, and we're encouraging members of the community to engage, you know, with the screening programmes. Also the Quick Your Way service, although it's often a reduced service, anyone can still contact through the NHS Inform website, and also there's a click to be contact service as well. They just click onto the website, put in their postcode, and someone will come and get in touch and contact with them. Regarding the flu clinics, there's going to be 3 phases. The first phase is actually just finishing this Friday, and that was for 25-year-olds pre-5s, I think it was, and that finishes on Friday. I'm just looking through this update here to try and think of anything else that I need to update on. There's also some mental health resources and supports, apps that people can access, and we'll send links to them. But the first is, like, say, the Well Connected Social Prescribing Programme. That's available to download in the App Store. We've also got the Lanarkshire Suicide Prevention app. Again, that can be downloaded on the App Store. And My Life, My Money app, sorry, and that's also can be downloaded on App Store and Google Play. So what I'll do is I'll sort of kind of forward the links on to these, or pass on the health improvement update. But I think that's everything that I can think of.
Thanks very much, Lynn, for that update. Any questions for Lynn, anyone?
I mean, sorry, there's just one more issue that I forgot to mention, and that's around the scaffolding at the Airdrie Community Health Centre. The scaffolding's down, but there's still a net up. And what's happening is people are double parking there, and it's causing real issues for shops, you know, for deliveries for shops underneath the health centre. It's causing travel issues. So I thought I'd just mention that one as well.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Any questions for Lynn? No? Okay. Moving on to, I've got a point here from Vanel. Is there someone from Vanel want to contribute?
I'm from Varnell, Michael, but I wasn't aware I was to give an update tonight because I was doing the minutes.
Okay, Judith, I know that's no problem. I don't think there's Christine. Is there anyone else from Varnell, or is that okay? No.
Yeah, it was just if Judith had anything to add, but there's if she's not, that's fine.
No problem, Judith. You're busy doing the notes, so no problem at all. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for those contributions. It's very grateful. Just moving on to point 11, AOCB. We've got Councillor Cullen wants to come in with an AOCB. Councillor Cullen.
Thanks, Chair. I'll not take up too much of the time. We've got John Bloomer on tonight. I met John recently in relation to his work that he does with Airdrie on his community football club. And I'm not going to ask John, put him on the spot and ask him to say anything, but he's on tonight to get a feel for the makeup of the community board with a view to in the future asking the board if he can give a presentation around aspirations that the community football team have got to locate a home for their club within Airdrie. That'll suffice for now, but it's just to so people wondered who John was and why he's here. It's Airdrie Community Football Club, and they'll ask for a presentation in the future where they'll present their aspirations around getting a home for Airdrie Community Football Club going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cullen. Hi, John. Welcome on to tonight's. I know you don't need to be put on the spot, but welcome anyway.
No problem at all. It's been very informative.
Good, thank you. I think Christine and Mark would be able to sort of help out with a future point on the agenda. Is that okay, Christine?
Yeah, that's perfectly all right. Just contact us through Community Matters and let us know when what you want to kind of put forward. That's okay.
No problem, and thank you very much for your guidance. It's appreciated.
No problem, John. Cheers. Welcome on again. Any other AOCB from anyone? No. Okay, thank you. Point 12, just before we finish, a date and time for next meeting.
Sorry, Chair. The date of the next meeting will be the 3rd of March 2022.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And just before we finish up, can I just thank to Judith for taking the notes and everyone for joining tonight. It's very good to see everyone. I know we had a few apologies, but we'll obviously meet up in March. And just before we do that, obviously, I can just say to everyone, on behalf of everyone on Community Board, I hope you all have a safe and peaceful Christmas and a good New Year for 2022.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.